Hey everybody, Joel at Up North Aquatics. Thanks for stopping by. Today, as requested by a subscriber, we're going to do a species-only video on the green terror cichlid and everything I know about it. This is my first species-only video, so I'd appreciate any feedback in the comment section. Just let me know if this is something you enjoyed or if you learned anything, or I guess maybe make some suggestions for other species that I keep. Which you could see in the full fish room tour video on this channel. Any of the species you want to know more about, let me know and we can make that happen. Alright, so to get started, here is my green terror cichlid that is just kind of growing out, maybe pushing 4 inches now. But these guys do get to be about 12 inches long. However, that is rare in the aquarium hobby. Usually they only get to be about 8 inches long. Some important things to know: they are a more aggressive South American cichlid. They can live a very long time, up to 10 years. So you really do got to be cautious when you're thinking of, and they do require a larger tank. I'd recommend at least, like, bare minimum 55 gallon, because if they do get a foot long, it's going to be hard for them to turn around, and anything smaller than that, and it's going to be really hard for you to keep your parameters clean. But so those are definitely things to think about in the long run, is that you're going to have this fish, not going to be able to keep them with maybe some of the other fish you want to keep because of their aggressiveness, and you're going to have a big tank basically full with this fish for 10 years. It is a commitment, so just keep that stuff in mind right away before you make your decision. But if it works out for you, this is a beautiful fish. Coloration, obviously, more than just green. You got a lot of blues, and they do have that orange on their tail and their dorsal fin. It is from what I've read and researched on, the males are lighter with more orange, like this one, so potentially they do have a male, and we won't know till he's full grown. But the females are usually darker with less orange. They are omnivorous. They do eat primarily like insects and things like that. Like they'd probably eat crickets, mealworms, really any bug that falls into the water. I do feed bloodworms as well as like a cichlid pellet for a staple. And I do have some pond pellets mixed in there that are aimed more towards fish that don't need like high protein foods, so he is getting kind of a balanced diet through that. The staple being the pellets, the bloodworms being like once or twice a week, just to make sure he kind of gets everything he needs. Again, I'm saying he lightly. It could very well be a female, but from what I know, or what I think I know anyway, he does seem to be a male. They do appreciate hiding spots, although mine is always out. Rarely do I see him hide, but he can still fit under that log, and I do have that little stump in there for him. For right now, they work. For right now, he could fit in there. As he gets bigger, I am going to have to add, I think right in the center here, I'm going to put a bigger piece of driftwood with a lot more room underneath. So if he ever does want to hide, which he never seems to, but just to give him that comfort, I will put something bigger in there that he could fit in as a hiding spot as he gets bigger. Keeping these guys with plants, I keep them with floating plants because that's really all I have access to locally, being that my closest local fish store is like in Wisconsin, across state lines and hours away driving wise. But that would be more of an ideal setup because they do like to dig in the substrate. A lot of times, they will eat off the surface. They do swim top and bottom. But a lot of the times this guy does let his food sink, and he'll pick it out of the sand. As you can see, this sand is full of tiny little pits all the way across, and the mulm on the bottom is constantly moving back and forth, because he, all day long when he's not, trying to get my attention to get me to feed him, he's picking at that sand. So they do sand sift, which is another thing to keep in mind for feeding, but also most importantly for plants. So if you want to keep plants other than floating plants with these guys, the ones that were recommended were like Anubias and Java Fern, because if they dig them up, they can survive as a floating plant until you can get it replanted. But to me, it honestly sounds like a hassle. But if that's your thing, by all means, go for it. And maybe we'll try it out in the future. You never know. But definitely hardy plants with these guys that can handle getting dug up. Ideal temperature range, like anywhere from 66 to 77. But if you're trying to breed them, 77 to 80 will help stimulate that breeding behavior, as well as pH as well. We're on the topic of parameters. Apparently they can handle anything from like 6 to 8. But again, with breeding, they are going to want a higher pH at 8. And fortunately, my water is like 8 out of the tap. So if I ever do decide to pair this fish up, I should be set to do so. And I mean, obviously an adjustable heater would be nice to have, like I do, so you could turn the temperature up for breeding, but also turn it back down, because when they are in breeding mode, they get super aggressive. Like that little bit of picking you just saw him do it, that silver dollar, is very rare with him right now because he's not breeding. He's pretty small, and they don't get aggressive till they get bigger. And I keep him at like 74, just to kind of save on the electric bill. But get him full grown, get him in water that's warm and water that's high in pH, and it's likely they'll go into kind of like that spawning mode, and they will start doing things like that pretty regularly and could really beat up on some tank mates. As far as breeding, these guys are egg layers. You know, females lay the eggs, the males fertilize them in open water, and they are very good parents. They surround their eggs and fend off anybody that tries to come near them. They will kind of raise their own fry. The fry can eat smaller foods like baby brine and cyclops and things like that right off the bat. And you would want to separate them once those fry got to a bigger point and they started, the parents would actually probably start going after them. But yeah, that's another thing to keep in mind. If you breed them, they can have up to 600 eggs in a spawn. So I mean, that there's obviously always eggs that aren't fertilized or that get fungused up. But even if you do the math on that, I mean, it's crazy. If you lose 90% of that spawn, that's still like 60 fish that you'll have to either make room for that are going to get really big or rehome. So just another thing to keep in mind, almost sort of warnings about them, you know, not trying to scare anybody away from them. They're amazing fish if you can make it work, but there definitely are a lot of things to take into consideration like that. What else did I have here? Tank mates. People have gotten a lot of things to work with these guys, but you really do have to keep in mind that these are the more aggressive South American cichlids. So something like the Jack Dempsey, I'm going to put in here with him when the Jack Dempsey's grown out, should do just fine. They kind of even each other out in aggression, and they will have more hiding spots so they can, you know, cut down on line of sight or get away if they need to. Larger tetras like the silver dollar, totally fine. I think they kind of don't even see it as a food source because it's so big. The Bashir is doing really well with them. The Bashir kind of hides all the time. There he is. Kind of hides all the time, and he's also going to get really big. So, you know, a lot of times can't even see him, and he will keep up in size and grow just as fast anyway. So, won't even be able to fit him in his mouth. And the Bashir can really hold their own with aggressive species. I mean, they're one of the oldest species of fish known in the hobby. So, if they made it this long, they can hold it. But other things like convicts, you know, that are, you know, smaller, but again, even out the aggression, can handle it. Things like the Oscar, the Firemouth. What else was I going to say? I am going to try my electric blue Acara when they're full grown, just because I don't think it's going to be an issue, because again, I keep the water colder. I'm not going to try to breed them in a tank with any other fish type of deal. Keep the green terror's aggression down. So I am going to try the electric blue Acara, but again, even though the Acara is less aggressive, and that since I guess, wow, I cannot talk. Since I'm on the topic of trying different fish with them, it's probably going to be best to have a backup plan. Like maybe if you buy from a local fish store, just see like, hey, will you take it back if it, or anything like that. If I try this with my green terror, will you take it back if it doesn't work? Or maybe if you're fortunate, you know, as really fortunate as I am to have a whole fish room, you know, make sure that there's another tank with tank mates that'll handle the green terror or whatever you're trying with it. just so you could get the fish out of that situation. Another thing I do is I always keep a divider for my 55 that I keep heated, just so that like at any point in time, if any cichlid starts going after another one, I can drop a divider in that 55 and keep kind of keep the fish that are going after each other both in the same tank still, but then they can't see each other, can't get access to each other. You know, basically keep them from killing each other until I can come up with a more permanent solution, whether I have to play like musical fish and move them all around, or whether I can you know, potentially rehome. So yeah, hopefully that's about all I have for you on these guys. Again, very beautiful fish, very long-term commitment, very big tank, but if you can make it work, very, very rewarding, and there is always the potential to breed. So hopefully I didn't scare you away from them, but it is definitely important to know, you know, not only the good, but the potentially bad or kind of scary things that could come with keeping a species, because you don't want to get yourself involved in a fish that's going to live for 10 years and then find out it's not going to work for you. It'll be such a headache. So yeah, that's all I have for you on the fish for now. We'll definitely keep following this guy's growth on the channel, so if you want to see that, you know what to do. All right guys, so that's it for the species only video on the green terror. If you made it this far in the video, thanks for following along. If this is the type of content you enjoy, please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate the support, and let me know down in the comments, I guess, A, if you learned anything from this, B, if you enjoyed it, and also if there's any other species in the fish room. Again, there is the fish room tour, and there will be more updates of everything I have. Any other species that you want to, you know, kind of learn more about, or kind of do a species only video on, let me know, and I can make that happen. So thanks for stopping by.